The first broadcast was an invitation. The second didn't ask for listeners, it found them. At precisely 3:17 in the morning, every radio within range of Bull Shoals flickered to life. Truck dashes, old clock radios, forgotten boomboxes buried deep in sheds, they all snapped on at once. There was no call sign, no warning, just a low, unsettling throb, like something breathing through old copper wire, and then the boogeyman spoke. But his voice was different this time. The showman's grin, the playful static, it was all gone, replaced by something cold and final. "If you're hearing this," he said, the words crawling from the speakers, "you're already part of it." The signal wasn't traveling through the air. It was coming up from the ground, from the flooded town sleeping beneath the lake, from forgotten caves where bones were stacked all wrong. The phantom DJ wasn't just broadcasting anymore, he was anchored. Something on the other side, something ancient and patient, had grabbed hold of him. And it had discovered just how useful a ghost with a radio could be. High above the clouds, far beyond the reach of terrestrial technology, Zero Antarctica recoiled. Inside his vessel, the resonance engine, a device designed to catalog entire civilizations by their music, screamed back data it had never encountered before. The Ozarks weren't just singing their old, mournful songs. They were answering. His species had a simple, elegant system. Harmony meant a civilization would survive, thrive, and reach for the stars. Dissonance meant extinction, a culture tearing itself apart, but what rose from Bull Shoals was neither. It was something new, a recursive pattern. Music that fed on memory. A sound that devoured guilt, that chewed on unfinished stories. A melody that learned its listeners, that found the cracks in their souls and pried them open. The signal was a parasite, and it was evolving with every terrified heartbeat it touched. Zero Antarctica knew the risks. His protocols were clear. Observe, catalog, and never ever interfere with a dissonant event. But this wasn't dissonance. This was an infection. He began his descent. Down on the winding back roads, the hillbilly guitar dude felt it long before he heard it. The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken words. He was riding his old pickup, his faithful guitar-riding shotgun, when the strings on the instrument suddenly went slack, then pulled violently tight, tuning themselves to a frequency resonating from deep underground. It was a chord he'd never played, a key that felt fundamentally wrong. Every story he'd ever told around a campfire, every ghost tale whispered over a bottle of whiskey, every local sin he'd buried under a joke or a catchy riff, they all came flooding back, but heavier now, coated in a dreadful new meaning. He pulled the truck over, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He finally understood. Troubadours, the storytellers, the musicians, they weren't just entertainers. They were containers. They were the vessels that held a region's history, its joy, its darkness. And his vessel was cracking. He had to get to the shack. He had to find the source. He wasn't sure what he'd do when he got there, but he knew he couldn't let this thing take the stories. They were all people had. He floored the gas pedal, the old engine roaring in protest. The trees on either side of the road seemed to lean in, their branches like skeletal fingers, whispering his own forgotten lyrics back to him. As he crested the final hill, he saw it, the shack. It was still there, silhouetted against a bruised, pre-dawn sky, but the radio tower, it had grown. It wasn't just metal and wire anymore. Gnarled, root-like structures, pulsing with a faint, sickly green light, had wrapped around the steel lattice, climbing higher and higher, burrowing deep into the earth and scraping against the low-hanging clouds. It looked like a cancerous growth, a tumor on the landscape. And at its peak, a single red light pulsed in time with the thrumming that now vibrated in his very bones. The broadcast had stopped being about a signal. It had become a beacon. The boogeyman's shack was no longer a radio station. It was a lighthouse for things that swam in the dark between worlds. The hillbilly guitar dude grabbed his guitar from the passenger seat. The wood felt cold, alien. The strings hummed with a menacing energy. He didn't know if he was going to fight the music or join it. Maybe he thought there was no longer a difference. As his boots hit the damp earth, another vehicle, sleek and silent and utterly alien, broke through the cloud cover, its landing lights cutting through the Ozark mist. Zero Antarctica had arrived. The alien observer, the human container, and the spectral anchor. 3 points of a triangle, all drawn to the same impossible sound. The music from the tower swelled, a chorus of stolen memories and weaponized nostalgia. The final performance was about to begin. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe for more.